Naturally, 3 days after I released a video complaining about Shado-Pan, Blizzard decided to pull a meme and fix it for the most part. And in this video, I want to briefly go over those changes. I have spent about the last hour on beta testing, and I kind of want to go over what I have found because the original recording for this was like 40 minutes long, and I definitely don't want to have a 40-minute video. Basically, Shado-Pan had a lot of flaws with it, and it's not just for Brewmaster, it's for Windwalker as well. I got some comments on the last video saying you should be including Windwalker, and I don't play Windwalker all that frequently, though I understand it's probably the same. Anyways, the buffs were pretty good. Here, let's actually pull up the WoWhead article and I will talk about it. So for those who can read, this came out a couple of hours ago, probably closer to like 6 or so, but the biggest thing is that they changed the energy expansion from 400 to 300. This is massive. This is one of my this is my probably biggest critique, or I guess like improvements they could have made to Flurry Strikes, and they actually did it. I'm not going to pretend I'm a genius. They probably already had this in mind. It's pretty easy to understand math when you're looking at 400 is too much, and the frequency of what Wisdom of the Wall buff uptime would look like, and the damage profile of Flurry Strikes. Anyways, so this change was expected, and I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they didn't do some weird thing like 350 energy, because that would have been like basically the same thing as 400. So knocking it down to 300 opens up the ability to have a little bit more flexible or spammy, I guess, rotation, and they also straight up buffed the attack power modifier on Flurry charges, so Flurry Strikes now does more damage. From a damage breakdown standpoint, and I'm going to go over this in a second, it's harder to tell how this changed because they did buff a bunch of other abilities or I guess talents that affect our abilities in the tree. So efficient training was buffed, 20% damage instead of 15 on all energy spenders. And energy spenders you can see here, if you don't play Monk or you don't remember, it's basically Keg Smash, Tiger Palm, and Spinning Crane Kick, kind of our two like quote unquote fillers, and then some of our other abilities like Expel, Harm, and Crackling Jade Lightning. Now specifically for the Brewmaster, this doesn't matter. This is never a damage kind of instance for us. Sometimes you might pull with Crackling Jade Lightning, but normally not. And Expel Harm, while cast frequently, the damage component of this is very, very, very low. So the damage being increased for those two doesn't matter. So some other things that they changed is High Impact. This is now a 10-second supposed debuff that is on the target after they get hit by Flurry Strikes. So not only did they double the duration of how long this lasts on a mob, they're also changing, because of the energy expenditure reduction, this buff uptime is not only being doubled, but it's also being increased by an additional like 25%, arguably. So Flurry Strikes, when it damages a mob, it's going to supposedly apply a debuff, and then that debuff, if it expires while it's on, it's going to act like a living bomb type situation like with Fire Mage, and it's going to deal physical damage to all the mobs around or nearby. I'm going to have to test this in Mythic Plus. I haven't yet. From my testing on Trinity Dummies, it wasn't even like this as a debuff or as a buff. It wasn't ever proccing. There's no uptime to be recorded by details, so I'm not sure if this is actually working yet, but this change is a move in the right direction. Of course, Martial Precision was also buffed from 10% up to 12, so a 20% buff. Nothing to talk about here. You're just going to penetrate more armor. That's fine. It's a small damage increase. One versus many. Again, I still have a problem with the way that this is worded. If you're ever looking at my testing on these training dummies, or even like if I in future videos, you're going to notice that you're always going to instantly have like 10 stacks of Flurry charges just because of the modifier on it. They changed it from maxed health all the way down to, well, not down, but they changed it to attack power percentage, and basically one Keg Smash on 4 targets instantly gives you 6 stacks. That's one global, by the way. You Keg Smash into a Blackout Kick into Breath of Fire, you're set. You're at 10 stacks. In single target, it does take a little bit longer, but you're always going to expend with 10 stacks, so this literally doesn't matter. The big component here is that they're increasing the damage of Fist of Fury and Keg Smash from 10% to 15 and then 30 to 35. Again, I'm not really talking about Windwalker in this situation, but it is affecting that half of or I guess that other spec. Last but not least, they changed this Wisdom of the Wall buff. They basically increased the shadow damage that it's going to deal. When I first read these notes, I was like, great, it's still going to be hard to proc, or like very tight to proc, but they're significantly increasing the amount of damage that this does as shadow. Something cool that they don't mention here that I noticed through testing, again, I hope it's not a bug and they actually meant to do this. This buff specifically lasts for 40 seconds instead of 20. So you're going to have double the uptime on this, meaning that essentially whenever you do proc the shadow damage component of Wisdom of the Wall, you're most likely always going to be able to proc Flurry Strikes while the buff is active because it now lasts for 40 seconds. Anyways, I want to talk briefly about like the testing that I've done. Essentially, I've done a couple of different like 5 to 9 minute segments of just like hitting training dummies. Again, I haven't done any Mythic Plus yet, but as of right now, you can see here that like shadow damage, for example, the shadow damage component is way higher than the physical damage component, and you can tell that Flurry Strikes dealing 11% of the damage is in the same ballpark as the Master of Harmony kind of Slusher Brew damage that you're getting. I forgot the name of the debuff already. This is actually really making it that Flurry Strikes is now competitive. This also isn't considering high impact, which is pretty cool. Here's the caveat of this damage breakdown that I'm currently showing you. You're seeing that Wisdom of the Wall like buff up time. Like, so I stopped at a weird point. Like I just procced a third Wisdom of the Wall in a third rotation, but I didn't do it for every single buff. So like one has 2, but you're seeing about like an 18 to 22% uptime. Now, realistically, I'd probably go for like 30 minutes a couple of times just to get like a better estimate. But essentially, you're seeing anywhere between like an 18 to 22%. This means that Wisdom of the Wall's uptime, generally speaking, should be close to 100%, like 90% or so. It's a little misleading because we now have the 30% uptime buff is actually only procced twice, and it's for the shadow damage aspect of it. So the shadow damage aspect is really good for the damage portion, but you do like the other buffs, not really the mastery one, but the critical strike one as well as the dodge and burst chance. With it being in like the realm of like 20% uptime means like you're at the start of combat, you're not going to proc it for probably like closer to 20 seconds, 20 to 25 seconds. You're going to proc the buff, and then you're constantly going to kind of, I don't want to say cycle through, because you're going to have the buff's going to be active for 20 seconds, and then you're going to have like 5 seconds of not having it active, and then you get it back for like 20 seconds. So we're seeing like an 80% to 90% uptime depending on how good you are at spending energy. A big problem, though, that we currently have, and I'll probably show some of the testing as well, is our tier set currently doesn't work. Meaning it doesn't work with the Shado-Pan Flurry Strikes. When you're wearing your 4 set, your Blackout Kick has a chance to deal, or sorry, your Blackout Kick increases the damage you deal by 1% for 15 seconds, second to 3 times, so it's a 3% damage increase, but it also has the chance to reset the cooldown of Keg Smash. That doesn't, it doesn't, when it resets and it makes it cost no energy, it's still not counting that it did cost 40 energy. So basically, whenever this procced, it slows down the rate that you're expending both flurry charges, as well as slowing down the rate that you're getting that Wisdom of the Wall buff. So the tier set is still broken. Blizzard needs to fix this. If not, there is a world where you don't run your 4 set bonus, which is going to feel really bad, just so you can actually proc Flurry Strikes like far more often. When I was testing, there was an instance where I got like 3 or 4 resets back to back on my quote unquote like Keg Smash, and that significantly, that's like 160 energy that I'm not contributing to expending my flurry charges, right? So that's a big deal. Now, of course, you do have more energy than to spend, but it is that global cost. Every global that you're not spending energy, you're one global like further out from the Wisdom of the Wall buff uptime. All in all, I don't want to spend too long on this video. I might upload, like, I did record my full testing of everything. I might upload that separately, maybe to just Discord or maybe just Patreon. I'm not really sure yet. But all in all, my opinion of the Shado-Pan tree has definitely gone up a lot after these changes. I am glad that they're paying attention to the outcries. This has definitely been one of the, probably I would say, hero tile trees that definitely has lacked attention basically since it was announced. Before even testing was available, people brought up the concern of Shado-Pan, and it's been eerily quiet on Blizzard's side for like the longest time. So very excited for Shado-Pan. Is it boring? Yeah, probably a little bit more, but it's going to be very, very, very strong for Mythic Plus specifically. There's a lot of really good traits. Flurry Strike's now doing a lot more damage. If high impact works the way that should also really allow for Shado-Pan to skyrocket in terms of AoE. Keg Smash feels like an absolute unit, and then just generally like predictive training and efficient training are very, very good. More uptime on Weapons of Order. Vivify healing on self is very strong as well, especially with the nerf to other healing kind of components of our kits. All in all, just very good changes. Just a few things that I'd still like to see. They need to fix this buff. Wisdom of the Wall Mastery still feels very weak. And against all odds, again, it says stack up to 20. I don't know what that means. It's like, why even have it say stack up to 20? It's more of like a wording thing. But still, you're gaining 10% agility for 6 seconds every time you proc. You're proccing every 20 to 25 seconds now. So the uptime on this is actually pretty high, so I can't really complain. Anyways, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Massive shout out to all my Patreon supporters, because without you guys, I wouldn't be doing content like this. I hope we're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.